My guest today is Sarah Dutkiewicz. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing fine, David. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm just going to call you Saduki because that's what everybody calls you.
Yep.
And we've known each other for, gosh, almost 20 years now. But
Yeah.
some folks listening have no idea who you are. Tell us, who are you? What do you do?
So my name is Sarah Dutkiewicz, but I go by Saduki because my last name is hard to spell. And it started as a couple nickname, and when I got married and took my husband's last name, I was able to get the couple nickname for myself. I got his
Awesome.
blessing, so all good there. I've been in tech over 20 years. I've written a book on PowerShell. I've organized conferences. I've spoken at conferences. From anything as crazy as Iron Python on Linux back at PyCon 2009. Nowadays, I speak on things like EventStorming and software architecture and design principles and things of that nature. But yeah, I've been doing all sorts of things. My technical job title is I'm a senior trainer at Nimble Pros. So I do some training stuff, but like the event storming we're going to talk about today, I do a lot of that as well.
Yeah, let's talk about it, EventStorming, because I'm excited to hear about it because I know basically nothing about this except for what you've told me in the last couple of days. Let's start with the definition. What is EventStorming?
So event storming is a workshop experience. Think of it this way, where you're typically gaining a shared understanding of a complex business system. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use it all loosely because we can use the practice to look at things from different perspectives. For example, I guess the main thing is to think of there's a lot of sticky notes and a lot of conversation.
All right.
Because the way that this practice works is we get everybody together, be it in a room or digitally. I'll use something like Miro.com. And we'll have the conversation of what happened. That is usually the starting point for things like processes. So let's say that we have a process we want to look at and maybe improve. So then we can be like, all right, well, what happened in that process? We look at the process thinking of it in the past. And then these orange sticky notes, also known as domain events, will come out and they're written in past tense and they're like, well, what happened? So when I do event storming with new people, one of the things that I do is online shopping, because we all can relate to online shopping, right?
Sure.
So, like, for example, I have a family reunion coming up on Saturday, and I needed to get some prizes we have special categories, like the farthest traveled, the oldest man, things like that. Yeah. And so for our oldest man, he collects golf balls, and so I had to get a golf ball display case. So I went on.
Wait, that guy's going to win that prize every single year until the inevitable
until he passes, yeah. And this year he turned 102. So.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Well, happy birthday to him.
Yeah. So I went online, did a search for whatever it is. So what happened? There's a sticky note that already says now searched for golf ball display case.
Okay, so sticky notes they're a task.
They are
on a to-do list.
All the little steps that happen throughout the way. Right. Now, with the event storming process, I'm just getting the events out. I'm getting the what happened out, not necessarily in order. Okay. So it could be like, yesterday I got the package delivered, so package delivered. Mm. Okay, well, before that, shipping notification received. Right. Before that, payment received, things like that. So it's all written in past tense.
Oh, okay. And this reminds me of, I was reading the book, I think it was Getting Things Done, which has a similar process. Write down all the tasks, even the tasks that you don't even think about, like figure out who sells golf balls. Yeah. That's a task.
That is a task.
And they break it out that way.
Yeah. So with
all right, so you got just this pile of things to do in no order, no context at all. What's next?
So that no context, that's the storm. That's the chaos of it all. Because when you're doing this exercise, you have other people in the room with you. You have the three main people who are in there, not main people, groups of people. So you have the facilitator. That's like me. That's the one who asks all the questions. You bring in an outside facilitator. Now, I am not tied to your office politics, so I can ask questions without having to worry about offending anybody. I'll offend them all at once.
All right. Everybody offend no one.
So bring a facilitator from the outside who can actually ask the questions and who can get past any internal biases. But then the other sets of people who are there are the people with questions and the people with answers. So the people who are in the process, who know the process, and I'm going to stick with process, but that's one of many things. But it's the people who know the processes or who know what goes on in like the different steps who can answer the questions. The example what I used for the e-commerce thing and the checkout thing is we had looking at the checkout, something wasn't getting calculated right. And so we had people going, well, where are the calculations? What calculations done by which services? And for the one example, we thought that the calculations were being done by our ERP service. And so we thought the problem was with the ERP service. Turned out the problem was with tax calculations, which is the tax system that is called by the ERP service that the ERP admin somehow didn't know about, but one of the IT administrators happened to know about. Wow. So I wrote it all out and showed it, and I was like, look, we have a system. We have an external system called the tax system. Mm-hmm. And look, this is our IT person who's responsible for it. So then I have a pink sticky note for systems. So I had a pink sticky note for the tax system, and a little yellow sticky note for my friend Melissa. She's the IT admin, and I put that little yellow sticky note with the system so that now we know going forward, if we have calculation issues and it's not related to the items, but it's related to taxes, now we need to go talk to Melissa.
Oh, so those colors are important then. The yellow is the people colors, and the pink is the steps or the systems?
So there are colors, and the colors are important later in the process. So when I do the event storming to start, if I'm doing a shared understanding of a business domain, so I guess, hold up, domain. I use the term domain a lot, and I'm not talking like technologyandfriends.com. I'm not talking about that kind of domain.
That's a good domain.
It is a good domain, but that's not the domain I'm talking about. I'm talking about the business domain. I'm talking about understanding the concepts and the terminology and building that shared understanding. So sometimes I'm talking about those things. But the domain, so event storming is seen commonly in domain-driven design. And domain-driven design is a mind shift from what most of us are used to. I put it in perspective, I used to do a lot of SQL development where I went database first, like, okay, here are my tables, here are my table relationships. Mm-hmm. Domain-driven design will break your mind if you come from that mindset. The reason is because we think too much about the relationships in terms of the data tables. We don't think about the relationships in terms of the actual business understanding.
Right, which may bear little resemblance to the database relationships.
Yeah, so domain-driven design challenges us to understand the business and make our designs around how the business does things. So it's a whole mind shift, and that's a whole episode in and of itself. But with event storming, this allows us to see the concept, to see the business domain, to build that shared understanding, to build what we call the ubiquitous language, the shared language that you might use, that the project managers might use, that we see in our help documentation. It's a consistent language that when I say a word, we all know what it means.
Got it. I like the word domain, for example. But I was thinking about this. So online shopping, there's a whole language around that. You know, people will talk about shopping carts and metaphors like that, which means something different than it would when you're in a supermarket, for example. It's not a tangible thing. But also online shopping, if you're doing it for buying, I don't know, men's clothing, then there's a special subset. They have their own language as well. Mm-hmm. And so there's all sorts of jargon that has to be translated. And as a consultant, you're dealing with this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, as a consultant, you have to remember that particular language is for that very particular domain. Like you said with men's clothing, it's very specific.
Yeah, or it may be even that company has its own set of languages. Well, they'll use a word that means something to them that means something totally different to everyone else.
Yeah. So when we're doing event storming, these words come up. And that's how we build that language is somebody will mention a word and we'll be like, well, yeah, that's this. And somebody's like, no, that's actually something totally different. So we have those conversations. So the first part of sticky notes and understanding is building that domain. For that, I don't care about the colors as much. And I'm sure the practitioners are going to be like, oh, but the thing is, when you're trying to build a shared understanding, you have to get past the colors. And sometimes certain people are attached to certain colors. And when we're just trying to build a shared understanding, that's fine. It makes it a little bit easier in the long run. It's when we get into things like process modeling or getting into organizing concepts of, okay, here are different concepts. Now let's segment them off into general aggregates. So this is like the cart. This is the customer. This is the payment. Like breaking those things up.
Okay.
So with event storming, the first part is storming. So it's getting all the ideas out into these sticky notes. The orange sticky note answers the question, what happened, written in past tense. That's an event. That's a domain event. That's something happened that is actually something we care about. The next round, after getting the storm out, is to deduplicate. And so identifying the duplicates, getting everybody on the same page. In that round, that's where I see a lot of that shared understanding starting to form more, because that's when we start to see the language. And we start to see the questions of, well, what did you mean by this term? And it's nice because you're having those conversations to the point where you have all the people in the room to make things happen well. And they could be like, oh, this is what's going on. That's what's going on. So we deduplicate. The next part of the storm after deduplicating it is putting it on a timeline for process modeling. So with the checkout process, we know all the stuff that happened. Now let's put it in order.
Right.
And let's look at it. Once you have those, so at this point where orange sticky notes are on a timeline, it could be on like white paper with sticky notes in person, which I do often, or Miro.com, and orange sticky notes with an arrow. So we have that in order. Now we can start bringing in the other sticky notes. So there's little yellow sticky notes. Those are your users. Those are your personas. Those are the who's responsible for this or who's performing this action.
Okay.
Especially maybe you're doing something portal. So I like to go back to the example eShop on web, which is a long-standing Microsoft thing that now NimblePros maintains. We have a manager. We have a product manager who is responsible for the products on the site. We have a administrator who can create the users. So now we have different personas, in addition to just your general customer or our demo user. So now I would have 3 different sticky notes for the users of, okay, who can perform this action? Well, something like managing roles in a system. That is our admin. Who can add products to the website? That is our product manager. So that's where the yellow sticky notes are. So you can identify clear roles, or maybe even the person, like in the example I used earlier. My friend Melissa was in charge of the tax system, so Melissa's name was right there, so we knew. We have pink sticky notes. Pink sticky notes are used to identify external systems. So when we're doing process modeling, we're looking at just a single process, but we might rely on other systems. We might rely on a logistics system or a shipping system, things like that, in addition to payment processing and taxes. So now we have all these pink sticky notes that show up. Let's see what else. We have blue sticky notes, which are commands. So those are written in present tense that say do something. And then we have green sticky notes, which are called read models. So in this context, what do we need to know? So when I'm creating an order, I need to know the items in that order. I need to know the name of the item, probably a SKU, probably the quantity, price. That'll go on a read model or a green sticky note. Let's see, what else? I'm looking at my list of colors. Purple. So purple sticky notes are under what conditions. So if you have a conditional thing, like what happens when payment processing fails? Well, when it fails, we need to retry. Or when it fails X amount of times, now we need to tell the customer payment processing has failed. Your order is now in a particular state.
Right. I can see these things getting complicated, very complex in a hurry for some systems. What happens if you can't fit it all onto a single sheet or a single whiteboard or wherever you're putting these sticky notes?
The beauty of doing this is you can do multiple sessions. And so with Miro, it's unlimited. It's digital space. So
it is unlimited, but not in your mind. It's still hard to get
so we
to
try
zoom
to
out
time
and see
box
it all.
these.
Okay.
So a standard, like if I'm doing big picture, trying to understand a general domain, I time box them to about 3 hours.
Okay.
The reason why I can do that is it fits in a 9 to 12 or a 1 to 4 window, but it also allows people to have that time to take a break.
Sure.
Get a snack, go outside, get some fresh air, use a restroom, kind of reset a bit. So I can pace people to get all the stuff out of their head, but at the same time in digestible chunks. Now, we talk about using this for doing things like understanding a business domain and understanding a process. We can also use this to understand the code that we have. So let's say we inherited a system. What's our understanding of it? All the sticky notes start to come out. Okay, now we want to maintain the system. Maybe we need to update the system. Okay. What are we working with? We can see the pain points. We can see all that because we do this. Same thing for brand new systems. You can do that there. I like doing what I call the next step after process modeling, which is the people experience. I call it people experience because there's users, there's customers, and then there's developers. And developer experience is totally different than if you have regular users because you have different conditions. And then customers is a whole different mindset than users because customers are typically paying you for stuff and you want to make sure that you're delivering what you should.
Right.
So we'll outline the process and be like, all right, how does this impact the user? Oh, wait, the user's getting interrupted here in this particular spot. Now we got to pay attention to the user experience even more and focus on making sure we capture that context so that if they're getting interrupted and they come back, they know where they're at. So we have these conversations with EventStorming for those as well.
Okay, so it sounds like you're using it for two purposes, really. One is to document systems as they exist now, and the other is to document something that you're going to create, something
Correct.
that doesn't yet exist. But the process is pretty similar, right? You're still going to say
The processes
here's
are
an
going to
event
be,
that happens under
they
these.
start out very similarly with the whole quest for knowledge and shared understanding, but then they have different colors. So like when I'm doing these with the developers, you're going to see a lot more of the colored sticky notes. Whereas when I'm doing it with the initial understanding the business, I'm going to not be as particular with the colors. And that's just, again, because at that point, what are we trying to focus on?
All right.
Whereas with the developers, we get focused on the colors because those colors can actually map to things that we do as well. So like yellow is aggregates. So the bigger yellow sticky note says, okay, this is the orders section. This is our invoices section. This is our customer section. So we have those delineations. And now we can understand how do we build our services from there.
You could take that and put it into your
Yeah,
DevOps
so
system and say create some tasks and assign them
yeah, and
based on
like
that.
read models will probably turn into things like DTOs.
Right.
Blue are commands. Commands are commands and handlers. So
You're
that's where
building
you
the
see those.
architecture off of this as well.
And then the orange sticky notes, those are domain events. You can ship those off and then
Awesome.
log
Yeah,
those into an event store.
let's dive more into this. As you've finished all this whole process, you got a big, gigantic board with sticky notes of different colors all over it. What's next?
So after we have all the sticky notes out and all the conversations are had, then we look at the overall process and go, okay, what are the key takeaways? So with building a shared understanding, so with the big process event storming or big picture event storming, it's to understand that our goal from that is, do we have a clear vision of what that shared understanding is, or do we still have pain points that we have to deal with? Take the pain points forward, get the questions answered. Those are the takeaways from big picture. From process modeling, the key takeaways are where are the pain points and how do we improve them? And where are the unknowns and how do we get those details? And then when we get into things like system design, so the big three, so first of all, there's two guys who are big in the community. There's Alberto Brandolini, who's the father of EventStorming, and Paul Rayner, who is big in the EventStorming community here in the US. Both of them have books on EventStorming. They're partially written. They're not fully finished, but they are valuable information. They talk about big picture, process modeling, and systems. Those are the three things. With those, it's just, with system design, it's understanding your aggregates, understanding your services, understanding your boundaries, understanding how to build code in a way that aligns with the domain-driven design side of things, and is actually a lot cleaner in the long run.
Now, in your role, you mentioned that you're a trainer, you're a head of training, I think, for Nimble Pros. But Nimble Pros also have they're also a consulting company. Are you mostly teaching people how to use this process, or are you in with them and helping them execute on the process?
So usually I'm actually executing on the process.
Okay.
So I do some training. We do monthly trainings and things like that. But nowadays, I am currently on a project where we started with EventStorming to understand the domain, and now we're building based off of our EventStorming results.
Do you have any success stories, something that particularly stands out, a customer that really benefited from EventStorming?
Actually, I was at a conference last year, and one of the people in the community came up to me, and he told me he had seen my talks on EventStorming, because I do these talks, Code Mash and DevUp last year, and Momentum DevCon later in Cincinnati this year. So, I mean, I talk about EventStorming wherever I go. And he had caught one of my talks and he said, you mentioned do EventStorming before getting too far in the customer engagement. to make sure that they understood what they
Right.
really wanted. And he said, I actually brought that in and had much better success than just doing the traditional requirements gathering. Because then he also said that the customer was more engaged as well.
What a great feeling that is, get feedback like that. That
Oh
you
my gosh,
something you
yes.
said last year had a positive impact on somebody. They
Yes, and
came
it was
back and
one of
shared with you.
those that it was somebody I knew of in the community, and is somebody I've looked up to for quite a long time. So to get
Awesome.
that feedback, I'm like, holy cow! First, they know who I am, but second, they're taking my advice. It takes
I I know how
some
you
of
feel.
those.
The other day in one of these signal threads, you said something nice about me and my show, and you're someone I look up
Of course, I say nice things about you. I
to.
mean, you make things easy to talk about, and you've been doing this for so long. It's awesome.
Is there anything we haven't covered that
Uh,
you feel is really essential for people to know?
I think we covered pretty much everything. I might not have mentioned the pain points. I use black sticky notes for that when I'm in Miro.
Black ones
Sometimes
for what?
so pain points are the like what are the pain points in event storming,
Ah, pain points.
and in their official colors it's like a reddish,
Okay.
but with Miro the reddish is too close to the pink and the purple, so I use
I
black
see.
sticky notes so that
Got it.
they stand out. They really are like, oh look, there's the pain right there.
Where is some place that people can go to learn more?
To learn more about event storming,
Yeah.
so there's eventstorming.com is their official site.
Okay.
If you look on YouTube, there are a couple videos that are pretty awesome from Alberto Brandolini. About 50,000 stickies, orange stickies later, and 100,000 orange stickies later. That's where I go wrong with event storming. I don't count my sticky notes.
Uh,
But other than that, those are the ones that I would watch. I've done webinars on event storming, so the Nimble Pros website, if you or Nimble Pros YouTube channel, if you do a
okay.
search for event storming, you will gladly see me there. I did one for I think it's Festive Tech Calendar in later in the year, where I did the Twas the Night Before Christmas, and so there's a video out there of me doing Twas the Night Before Christmas with event storming.
Oh, cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
And where are you speaking next? You mentioned
uh,
Momentum is coming up, right?
yeah,
Next.
Momentum DevCon. So that is in the middle of October later this year in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Anything else?
Nothing right now. So we've
Okay.
got Momentum DevCon, and then on August 15th is the CodeMesh CFP opening. And so I'm
I
trying to
didn't
see.
know that date. Are you on the board?
I
Is
am
that how you know
not.
that? Oh,
No,
okay. But
this
you had
year
that.
I am I am in with the rest of us where we're
Okay.
all submitting stuff and hoping that our talks get selected. So,
Well,
but every year, August 15th to the end of August, that's the CFP for CodeMesh. You don't want to
oh,
miss it.
it's always the same date every. I actually never noticed that.
Yeah, same date every year.
Uh, I will definitely submit. I hope to see you there.
I hope so, and I hope to do some event storming. We'll see.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Oh, you're
I've learned a
welcome.
lot today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Event storming, powered by technology, isn't just about mapping systems. It's about connecting with our global friends and colleagues to build a shared understanding and elevate our software development one collaborative session at a time.